So what I'm going to show here is a compilation of clips from the earlier days of my targeting. Some of this material is literally from just around the time when I woke up to what it was. I started recording approximately 3 weeks after fully waking up to what was going on and coming to the understanding that this was a coordinated harassment campaign. After doing some research online, and of course came across the stuff relating to quote unquote gang stalking, which is a term that I don't use at all anymore. But at that time, when I was just waking up to it, that was what I knew it as. Now, there are a million reasons why you should not use that term if this is really happening to you to describe these things. I won't go into that now, but it's not good to use that term specifically because they have set up a whole simulation online of people who they've paid to discredit the real people who these things are happening to. So I don't use that term anymore. But anyway, this is some material from the earlier days from when I was living in Toronto and had a good paying job and actually had an apartment in the lower area of the buildings where I was working. And so, and it was a nice apartment too, very big. I showed in one of my previous videos before how they had sent somebody literally to try to break into the apartment while the Toronto police were positioned right across the street. Clearly, they knew that that was happening as well, I believe. So, a lot of these clips, you're going to see the criminal stalking Toronto police. What they would do at the start of it, when I first woke up, was my job was to go around checking a whole bunch of buildings at night and doing security, basically making sure that everything was safe and that there were no problems and that there were no break-ins. And so I was also on call throughout the nights as well, and at some points during the day. So I managed a team of contract security guards also at that time. And so while I was doing my job at nighttime and going to these buildings, the Toronto police were literally following me, harassing me, stalking me, parking directly out front of my workplace and staking out the place all night while doing no work. Now, I've exposed a lot of corruption with the police in Ottawa and Gatineau over the past few years, but still nothing is remotely close to the type of deranged, psychopathic, criminal behavior of the Toronto police, who are the most corrupt in any five of the Five Eyes countries, in any first world country. They have to be absolutely the most corrupt. They're the most brazenly criminal. And so anyway, some of their activities are documented here where they're literally stalking me while I'm just going to do my job to keep these buildings secure. So again, you got to understand, these are the people who are supposed to serve and protect the public, and they're literally criminally harassing me while I do my job to try to secure these buildings and, keep people safe as well. And they would harass some of my security staff as well. And it got to a point where I had I would always have one of our staff members, who I was the supervisor of, accompany me during the earlier days of the harassment because it was so intense and so continual. They would send the fire department to harass me. They would send the Toronto police everywhere I would go. They would send a whole bunch of community-based agents literally to mob me. They would set up street theater all the time with these people, faking events, literally setting fires outside at the area across the street from where I was living. They would continually have people set fires in coordination with the Toronto Fire Department, who knew these fires were going to be set because they would come so quickly that they were already positioned there. So this was outright criminal behavior, and there are numerous times where people were breaking in and trespassing on the properties, and the Toronto police clearly knew about it and were allowing it to happen. So it was extremely, the earlier days of this type of thing, for anyone who's real, who's going through it, knows that at first it's very traumatic to wake up to this and come to an understanding of how massive this program is and how many people they control. So anyway, I'm going to go show some of the earlier material here. Again, this is a compilation of clips, and at some points throughout I will do some narration and explain what's going on. But some of these earlier clips here are from 2021, and we'll go from there. So this first clip here is one of the earliest recordings I have, and it is from around July of 2021. And this is literally just a few weeks after I had awakened to what this really was, and that it was a coordinated targeted harassment program. And so at that point, the first few weeks, it was very traumatic. The attacks were, the targeting was intense. They would send the police everywhere I would go. They would have helicopters flying over as soon as I would step outside. The fire department would show up and screech their sirens wherever I would go. They would harass me continually while I was at my job. So at first I didn't record because I was a little bit worried about what would happen if I started to record. Again, I was just waking up to it, and I thought, I didn't even know if they might take a shot at killing me or something if I recorded some of this stuff and put it out there. That's how severe the targeting was at first. They wanted it to be intense, and they do this at first when people first wake up because they want to quickly, if they can, get the person to just be driven to. So the targeting is very intense at the beginning when the person first wakes up to it, and that is by design. They want to drive the person, if they can, to suicide, or possibly just drive them insane. They really ramp it up at the point when the person has first awakened to what it is. And you have to keep in mind that there are a lot of people who they do this to who never wake up to what it is, who never do the research, and it ends very badly for them a lot of times too, unfortunately. As traumatic as it is to wake up to the fact that this is going on, in some ways it is better. It is a good thing to wake up, because at least then, if you understand these things, you can do further research and take precautions and, do what you can to try to mitigate these things, as hard as it may be. And of course, what I came to realize, one of the most important things, was to document everything. And so these earlier clips, I was just recording with an iPhone. Actually, it was with my work iPhone, and documenting with that. So the footage isn't as great. I didn't have the camera glasses at that time, but that was what I had to document these things with. So the first clip, like I said, is from literally just weeks after I had awakened to it. I awoke in late June of 2021, and this is from July of 2021. And this was while I was doing my job at night. I was going to do a security check on one of our buildings. We had about 10 buildings in the area, and it was my responsibility and the responsibility of the team of security guards who I managed to keep these buildings safe and check on them at nighttime. So again, I was headed to one of the buildings. I knew what was going on at this time, and I was very traumatized by it. I didn't know what was going to happen, and so I had just kind of started documenting at this point. But as you can tell, I was still quite traumatized, because I didn't know what they were going to do, whether they were actually going to take a shot at possibly killing me or something like that. So anyway, this is some of the earlier documentation here. You'll see there's two vehicles parked, court service vehicle parked at the end of the street, and those court service vehicles are, of course, used to take criminals to prison. So they would park that at the very end of the street where they knew I would be doing my job, and have it sit there all night while I was working, and then as soon as I was off duty, it would pull away. So they'd have them literally just pay them to sit there watching while I was going back and forth to check these buildings throughout the night, and doing no work, just sitting there to intimidate and, send a message, because it is a court service vehicle which they'd use to take violent offenders to prison with. So at that time too, I had looked into it in the earlier days, and was referring to it at times as INSET, which is Integrated National Security Enforcement Teams, which is a system that they have along with CSIS, which they claimed is set up to deal with quote-unquote terrorists, but really it's just set up to harass people who are law-abiding citizens, who may be truth speakers, dissidents, whistleblowers, etc. If you look into INSET, it has a lot of the things that are described with regards to what they do are the same as the tactics that are utilized in the targeting program. So yeah, this is some very early footage here, literally weeks after I had just awakened to what this was, and this is in Toronto in June of 2021. So as soon as I exit one of the buildings that I was checking while doing my job, we see one of the vehicles from the city immediately drives by and just goes down to the end of the street and just parks there and idles there for no apparent reason. There's no one else here in the immediate area, and yet you have a vehicle from the city that just randomly comes down here, parks here. Obviously he knows that I just came outside. This type of thing happens very, very regularly, too regularly to be dismissed as coincidence. And then also, if you look closely, you can see at the end of the street there, there is a large court services vehicle, and these vehicles idle in this area at the end of the street all the time while I'm doing my patrols, for no apparent reason. And they just sit there sometimes for hours on end while I'm trying to do my job in the area. Now, they don't say anything, but I think the presence of a court services vehicle, which really is for taking, offenders to prison, says a lot. You don't really have to say anything with words when you have something like that to, sort of threaten a person indirectly. And that's what a lot of this is. It's attempts at psychological torment, and also at threatening people in a very indirect way. With me, a lot of it is concerning my job. So these people are constantly in the area when I'm doing my job. And now you can see the city vehicle has pulled away from the dead end, comes directly up just a little bit in front of me, and he just starts randomly idling there in the area. And then he gets out of his car and pretends to be doing something. I've also had incidents with vehicles which belong to the city, particularly these street sweeper vehicles, which have almost driven into me on multiple occasions, not even making any effort to get out of the road, driving directly towards me while I'm trying to do my job and patrol the buildings. And again, you see this guy, so he parks at the dead end, stops for no reason there, turns around, gets out of the vehicle, and then just starts lingering in the vehicle. And this area here in particular is kind of relatively secluded. So it's very, it's not normal to see this happen. And, it could happen occasionally, but for it to happen this frequently and always while I'm doing my job, it's highly improbable that any of that would just be coincidental. The thing is, all of this is coordinated. It's with inset through the RCMP, and many of these people are paid to partake in these operations to harass me indirectly. It's 100% wrong. I have no criminal record. I've done nothing wrong, and yet these people continually follow me around while I'm doing my job. And then they just kind of act like they're just lingering there casually. But I mean, it's quite obvious. And then you see beyond him, you see the court services vehicle, which is, it's there to just intimidate, to intimidate. And yeah, so that's basically what's going on regularly just while I'm trying to do my job. It's very unfortunate that there are people like this who agree to take part in these operations, to personally attack people in this way, in such a cowardly and deceitful way, and to hide behind these phony excuses that they make through the justification of inset, which is really just pure deception. Again, I've gone over some of the information from their website, and the way they describe it is absolutely false, and it is simply a justification for harassing people who certain entities deem to be deserving of this, even if these people have done nothing wrong and have no criminal record. So that's where we're at with this right now.
And now continuing on, you can see as I'm recording this, a police vehicle has just conveniently randomly popped up onto the scene and drives over to the end of the road near where the court services vehicle is already lingering. Now, what would be the point of this? So you've got a vehicle that belongs to the city and some guy just randomly idling outside of it. Then you've got a court services vehicle, and then a police car just randomly pulls up. And again, this is normally this would be a relatively secluded area where I'm doing the patrols. But on this occasion we have, and now here's the police car driving up towards me, kind of trying to intimidate, and then looking over to, their presence is just to intimidate, really. Now, if you want to say that they just showed up randomly right then, I mean, I'd say that would be pretty naive. But again, here we go. This guy, yeah, he just stops to have a smoke. That seems likely that they do this all the time. And, people who work for the city have been obviously approached to partake in these activities, and many of them do it. And again, it's very likely that they're paid for this. I don't know whether it's a good amount or not, but yeah, so that's all for now.
And here in this next clip, you can see I've just come outside from checking one of the buildings while I was at work. And of course, at nighttime, they have the court services vehicle, Toronto Court Services vehicle, which is used to take criminals to prison, of course, parked right outside of where I had been working. And it would just sit there all night with the two people in there. Sometimes I would literally see them sleeping in the vehicle, and they just get paid to sit there all night because they knew this was the area where I was going to be going to do my job. And then as soon as I was off duty, it would just drive away. So again, continual, consistent psychological harassment, and with them clearly, without any shadow of a doubt, doing no legitimate work, just being paid to do this type of thing, to criminally harass. An absolute embarrassment, but this was just some of the stuff that I was dealing with at that time. So you'll see it here. I'm just coming out of the building, and you'll see the vehicle parked there.
14 a.m. on August 6th, 2021. We see that literally just as soon as my coworker and I arrived at the building, we have a court services vehicle that pulls up right in front of the building where we're patrolling. And again, they just idle there. They will probably leave the area when we leave. And basically what they're doing is part of this coordinated, organized harassment campaign, following me around while I'm attempting to do my job. And they're more here for the purpose of psychological harassment and intimidation. Basically just showing you a court services vehicle is pretty self-explanatory, because this is the vehicle that they use to take violent offenders and criminals to prison. And again, I've done nothing wrong, I've committed no crime, I'm just trying to do my job, and I'm continually followed around and harassed by these people. So just continuing to document that activity. So we'll just get a little bit more footage of these people. Yeah, I'm coming. Basically just idling there. Probably they'll leave the area after we leave. Again, there's no valid reason to be going down there. And again, it's specifically the areas where I am. So like literally they arrive as soon as I enter the building, and then they just park there and pretend that they're, just randomly in the area. But it happens all the time, and it cannot be dismissed as coincidental.
And next, these are a series of clips also from 2021, the summer of 2021, shortly after I had awakened to what was going on and to the targeting program. And you'll see how the Toronto police literally continually showing up all the time when I was just trying to go and do my job at night and check on these buildings. They would synchronize right at the intersections when I would get to, the end of a street continually. Even when there was hardly anyone else around there and the street was quiet, they would show up and continually stalk me, synchronize, show up everywhere I would go, just to continually add to the psychological harassment and the threatening and intimidation. Obviously, that plays a huge role in the whole thing of the trauma that they're trying to inflict on the target, especially in the earlier days. So you can see how consistent they were, literally with stalking me while I was trying to do my job. And these are people who, again, who are supposed to be serving and protecting the public. They do not do that at all. They are criminal sociopaths. And yeah, so you can see here how consistent they were with these synchronizations, stalking me while I was trying to do my job and showing up wherever I would go. And then if you would say anything to them, because sometimes in the earlier days, I would actually confront them about it and say, hey, why are you doing this? They would just gaslight and lie and say, what are you talking about? As they're told to do, because they're given specific instructions with regards to what to say if anyone who they're targeting with this harassment, confronts them about it. So anyway, these are the clips. We'll just take a look at these now.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing, guys. Yeah, perfect timing. There they go. Driving right up to the intersection, right when I arrive. Perfect timing. And they know what they're doing too. He looks over as if he's surprised, but he knows why he's there. Again, following me around and stalking me. We got perfect timing. Synchronization again, exactly when I come to the intersection once again. What are the odds? What are the odds that they would show up that often at the intersection? Slim to none, all the time. Let's get some video. Yeah, there we go. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Hey, perfect timing, buddy. Every time I get to the intersection, there's a police car. What are the odds? What are the odds, eh? Every time, man. You guys are quick. I know, because you're tracking the phone that you're able to just show up here every time I come here. So you're stalking me when I do my job. Oh. Yeah, and I'm gonna put that online too, so don't worry. Have a nice night. Keep. I'm security. I work here. You've had Toronto police officers stalking me while I do my job every night for the past like 3 months. Oh. And it's funny because what are the odds that like 70% of the time I come to an intersection, a police car arrives right away? So here we are walking up to the same dead-end street where I often do my patrols, and we see that there are 2 police vehicles parked in the area. Directly up against the wall at the dead end of the street. And this is an area where they have a clear view of where we're doing our patrols. So basically they can come here and pretend that they're just, loitering there or whatever, just sitting there, and basically, intimidate while I'm doing my job. Like, there's no reason for them to be there, yet they just come here continually. This is because they're part of the inset group that is harassing me continually while I'm doing my job. This involves local police. It's run essentially by the RCMP, but it involves the local police. Another thing too is, like, what are the chances that every time you go to an intersection, or like 80% of the time, a police car immediately arrives at the intersection while you're doing your patrols and doing your job? I mean, that just would not happen. The chances that anything like that is coincidental are 0. So these people are involved. They're here for the purpose of psychological intimidation. They know exactly where I'm going because of my cell phone, which I have to carry for work. And so because of that, they follow me around all the time while I'm doing my job. And again, he's got the headlights on. It's all about intimidation. They know exactly what they're doing, but then whenever you speak to people involved in these things about it, they just lie because they're told to lie. So very unfortunate, but we're going to continue to expose this. Get some footage of them. Just in time as we come outside, immediately the police showing up at the intersection. Perfect timing. One there. There's another one. Yeah, two. One before the other. There we go. There's the sirens blaring. And keep in mind, this is just because I've come outside to do my job. They're not actually dealing with anything. They're just coming by to harass me with noise harassment. So there they go. All the time. That's what they do. We can't have someone just trying to do his job. We have to go out and we have to shriek sirens every time he goes outside. and just try to harass him constantly. And that's what the first responders, police, fire department do in this area. That's what they do. Here we go. Just from walking outside, you immediately get the fire truck coming down, blaring the engines. Total waste of resources for the fire department. Total waste of time, just for the purposes of noise harassment. And this is just not random or coincidental. It happens all the time. They will bring a fire engine blaring as loud as possible. Just for the sake of the noise harassment. So it's important that people know that fire department resources are being completely wasted on this complete idiocy, and it's all being done to stalk someone who has done nothing wrong and who has no criminal record. As well, the police department are participating in this stalking and harassment, and many of the members of this community, unfortunately, who have been lied to about me, are also driving around stalking me and following me while I'm attempting to do my job. The date is January 20th, 2022. Just on my way home, and you can see who just showed up there. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. Who would have thought, right? And yeah. Same old things going on. The stalkers from the fire department appearing on site. I'm just coming out of my workplace, finishing my shift, and you can see who's out here. Some of these characters here. They just happen to be idling just outside as soon as I come out of my workplace. So what are the odds, right? Of course, there's nothing going on here. They're just kind of idling here because, and he'll do the wave. Watch him wave. Is he gonna wave? Oh no, not this time, right? He's pretending to do his work here, but yeah, basically doing some stalking. Anyway, yeah, so as soon as I exit work, we got those characters. They hadn't done it for a couple days, so I guess they had to get something in there, but yeah, perfect timing. Now he's gonna drive away. As soon as I go to the subway, he's gonna drive away. If one was to wait here, they would see that as soon as I go down, he will drive away. But anyway, yeah, so there's another one. Very consistent with the stalking are the Toronto police. See, there you go, and then he drives away, right? Perfect timing, man, perfect timing. Awesome, well done. So he leaves as soon as I go down to the subway station. Well, perfect time. And look at who's there. I just got off the bus, and police car turns right at the exact spot. I got off. You can see them there, and you can hear the sirens, right? So the moment I got off the bus, he just turned. And that was set up precisely so that I would see it. So I leave work, there's a police car outside, and I get off the bus. And you can see there's two of them parked down there, way down at... and they timed it exactly, knowing where I would get off. And you can see, so there's one facing forward and one facing behind, just down there. So they're just idling there. But yeah, interesting. And you can hear the siren off in the distance. So, yeah, so I leave work. There's a police car right outside. Right by the area where they knew I would be going down to the subway station. So I'm going to turn the light on the phone here, it's a little better. Now as I start moving the other way, heading to where I'm going, they'll both drive away. So I just got off the bus, and it's February 27th, and he's over here. As soon as I get off the bus, positioned perfectly so that I would see them, and you can see them idling there the moment I get off. So it's another one there, and you can see them. They just decided to be idling right at the area where I was going to get off the bus. So yeah, there's yet another one. February 27th, 2022, and the Stockard police are right at the area where I've exited the bus. Of course, idling there and doing what they usually do, which is stalking people and doing nothing. Of course, there's real crime going on in the city now too, but they don't care about that. And now here we got another police car coming down the street here, it looks like. You'll see right here. It's another one there. Going to... Maybe they have somebody else to stalk tonight as well. I know there's, you got lots of targeted individuals in the city, so they hear the sirens now. So that's as soon as, the moment I got off the bus. The one police car positioned over there, you can see them. And then this one comes down the street here. So again, it's all about trying to intimidate the target.
In these next clips, you will see how as soon as I would step outside of the building, starting my job at night, they would have police helicopters immediately flying by overhead. It would be synchronized oftentimes right with when I would step out to start my job. And of course, when I was leaving, that was the building that I lived in too. My unit was in the basement area of that building, my apartment. So it would be right as soon as I would step outside. And also even when I would leave there just to go to the grocery store, during the day, sometimes they would have the planes fly directly overhead right as I would step outside. It was very consistent, and they would continually have these helicopters flying by up above. And it was all part of the harassment campaign, which was extremely consistent at that time. And these were the Toronto police taking part in these criminal activities again and again.
Saturday, July 17th, 2021. Just beginning my patrols shortly after 10 p.m. and immediately we get one of these low-flying planes making a huge amount of noise flying directly overhead of where I am beginning my job. This happens constantly. Far too regularly to be attributed to mere coincidence. July 21st, 2021, shortly after 10 p.m., just as I am beginning work, another plane flies overhead, quite low range. As soon as I exit the building, the low-flying plane comes by, making an excessive amount of noise. This is constant all the time. And there's the flyover as usual. As soon as I exit the building, immediately the police plane flies overhead, making excessive amounts of noise. Constantly this happens. 2 in a row, we got another one flying over here. Directly overhead again. This one's going a little slower though. Still right overhead. Directly overhead. August 19th. Just starting out, and there's the flyover, as usual.
After 2:30 on October 7th, 2021, and shortly after I come up from the subway to go to work, we hear the sirens. I just want to see who it is, whether it's the police or the fire department here, so we can clarify. It's at the I think they're at the intersection. I can't quite see them yet. You can hear that though very clearly. So again, this is part of the stalking and harassment that they consistently do. So chalk up another one for the books there. And that's consistent and loud. And they're not even moving on. They're staying in the one area, right? Oh, it's a fire truck here.
What you're going to see in this next clip is a situation where I was just finishing up my night shift, doing my final checks of one of the buildings, the exterior areas of one of our buildings, and a perpetrator abruptly shows up. It was around, I think, 5 a.m. or shortly after 5 a.m. No one else in the area, as you'll see, and he abruptly comes out of nowhere, and he's got this really large dog. I'm not sure whether it was a pit bull. It might have been a pit bull. And as he crosses the street towards me, he clearly intentionally lets it off the leash and lets it run toward me. And this was really, actually, it was a little bit nerve-wracking at the time, because I didn't know whether it was going to start biting me or whatever. So again, I informed him I was recording it. I was recording it with my phone at the time. And it's very, very obvious that he was told to do this too. And as he passed by, he subsequently started shouting at me. And again, he tried to gaslight and invert the situation. And so shortly after, I have the clip where he approaches from across the street, starts walking slowly toward me, clearly intentionally lets the dog off the leash to run toward me. And it could have been a really bad situation, but fortunately the dog did not bite me. And so this is what you're going to see here. And a lot of the people who they use in these harassment campaigns are often criminals, people involved in the drug trade, drug dealers, violent psychopaths like that. And of course they work in coordination with the police, and the police are all a part of this operation, so that if anything occurs and one of these people does something to one of the people they're targeting, the police will completely protect that criminal, as was the case with this guy. If I would have reported this or anything, I didn't end up reporting it to the police. However, at that point I had already given my notice at that job, and I reported what had happened to me that night. And so my employer said, okay, well, we'll give you the rest of the time off with pay, because they wanted me just to leave. It was all part of the whole thing. Was also, there was workplace mobbing going on with this situation, and the harassment was all part of that. When I reported the continual stalking and harassment of the police to my employer, they completely ignored it and pretended that it wasn't happening. When I reported the incident with this criminal letting his dog off the leash to try, his purpose was to get it to bite me, but fortunately it didn't. They then at that point tried to just kind of brush it aside and said, okay, we'll give you the next couple weeks off with pay. And then at that point I was leaving anyway. So at that point I had been with that company for 3 years. The first 2 years there were no problems. All of the targeting started the last year, which was as I awoke to it in 2021, but I started noticing some weird things toward the end of 2020 as well. So this is the clip here. Again, this is a criminal who is fully involved with the police, protected by the police, and he was sent to do this unquestionably. So he lets this dog off the leash just as he comes around the corner, and he lets it go directly toward me here.
Of course, you can't close out the night without one gang stalker walking by randomly at like 4:50 in the morning. Again, just right to the area where I'm heading. He just randomly comes up because, you know, it's common to go out at 4:50 in the morning. And now, hey, look at him stopping. Gee, I'm gonna look around and pretend I'm disoriented and just pretend I'm just out walking. When in reality, I'm a gang stalker, and yeah, you're gonna let you go. If that bites me, it's on camera, man. I said if it bites me, it's on camera. Yeah, sure it is. Am I acting like that because I got people stalking me and following me? That's why.
Am I following you, stalking you?
You're walking up to me at 4:50 in the morning with a...
So in this next clip, you're going to see a situation where they had people who were camped out in the area directly across the street from the buildings that I was living in, setting fires, intentionally setting fires. And this was all done in coordination, clearly with the fire department, because they would have them set the fires and then the fire department would almost already be there. They'd be right there. And immediately they would show up. It was so quick that they had to have known that they were going to do this, and it would happen all the time, sometimes multiple times each week. And we had been initially told that these people who were camped out over there in tents were homeless people, but I subsequently found out that in reality these were actually community-based agents. Clearly they weren't actually homeless people, at least most of them weren't. There may have been a few that were, but most of them weren't. And so the whole thing had been a lie, and they had set them up there. And it all culminated late in the summer where they had this whole fake setup thing where the police were brought in to stage this fake interaction with these people and remove the tents. And they set up these fake clashes with these protesters who had clearly been brought in and just paid. They weren't legitimate protesters, because I witnessed part of the situation, and in fact there had been people there who looked like they were from the media, from some of the media organizations who had been set up all over across the street, coaxing these people who were these supposed protesters, directing them as to where to stand, setting it up literally just like a movie. So this situation here, you'll see they had people continually setting these fires. Now, this is a short time before I woke up to the targeting. I believe this was around May of 2021, and I woke up in late June of 2021. So you'll see that they literally had them intentionally setting fires to the area across the street, and then right away on cue, the brave, heroic Toronto Fire Department would show up and put the fires out. Of course, the police were in on this too, and the whole thing was a big staged circus sideshow, with the police pretending also that these were homeless people. I also witnessed them setting the whole thing up alongside many members of the media, and in fact they were setting the whole thing up to orchestrate these clashes, giving the police instructions as well as to where to be as they filmed the whole thing. I only have a short clip of that remaining, and I'm not going to put that up obviously on YouTube for obvious reasons, because of things like that. Yeah, you can't really, they don't really allow stuff like that to get put up because it's reality and it's the truth. So, but I only have a short clip of it. I had lost some of the later footage of that, but I do have a clip where there are actually people who are clearly from some media organization giving them instructions and handing them papers that I don't know whether these were scripts or whatever they were, and they were directing the protesters as to where to stand as they set the whole thing up. But anyway, you can see here these people who were community-based agents who had were camping out in tents for months on the other side of the street across from where I lived. The police, of course, had lied about the whole situation, telling us that, they don't think they should be over there or whatever, and that they were homeless people. But the reality was they knew fully well that these were community-based agents who had been put in that situation, and the whole thing was a big sham. And of course, they were literally having them start fires, and you can clearly see that here, and you can clearly see how quickly the fire department arrived, because they were right there, because they knew that they were going to do this. So you'll see that here in the following clip. Again, I believe this is around May of 2021, and when I recorded this, this was just before I hadn't awoken to my targeting at that point, but I was getting close. I awoke to it in late June of 2021, as I said, and I was starting to realize at this point that there were some really weird things going on, and I think they were doing these things intentionally. Again, it was another excuse to have the fire department continually show up wherever I was, and they would constantly have these people starting these fires. So you'll see in the following clip here.
I'm gonna have to write an incident report about this too.